embarrassing blunders. But etiquette tells us just what is expected of us and guards us from all humiliation and discomfort.
So if you're watching this video, or any of my videos for that matter, you're probably a misfit, an outcast, or just a freaking weirdo. Or you're probably someone who has self-identified as being a nonconformist. Or you might be someone who refuses to be labeled as sheeple. After all, throughout your life, you've been forced to follow the herd, to stifle your creativity, to lie about who you really are, to maintain your relationships, and to maybe have some close friends. Well, things are about to change for you, my friends. We are now suffering through this great apocalypse, where the sheeple will die and perish, and the free thinkers like you and me will not only survive, but thrive in this brave new world. And I'm going to show you how and why in this video, so please stay tuned. So I wanted to cover Edward Scissorhands for quite some time. The movie actually piqued my interest when I stumbled across an amazing interview with this wild-haired, highly eccentric Tim Burton. In it, he is describing his fascination with this young humanoid who has scissors for hands. Burton then goes on to say that the main character, Edward, reminded him of his own childhood. Burton grew up in a suburban town in California, and yes, like many of us, he grew up as an outcast, or kind of in the other category. Now, Tim Burton is very successful now. He has numerous accolades and blockbuster movies under his belt. Now he is no longer considered weird, but he's graduated to eccentric, and he continues to write and direct movies that are centered around misfits who disrupt the natural order of nature, and they threaten to overtake the world, so to speak. After all, that's who Edward Scissorhands was. He was a misfit. He was created by this mad scientist who died before he was able to give poor Edward human hands. Throughout the movie, we see that Edward yearns for human affection, and most importantly, love. But his hands destroy everyone he tries to touch. Now, Edward is destined to live his entire life isolated and alone, until he is visited by the local Avon lady, Peg. At first, she is frightened by Edward's hands, but decides to take him home after she realizes that he is harmless, and it's best for him not to be up in that beautiful castle all alone. The town he goes to is colorful, and everyone is welcoming him at first. There are scenes where they're shoveling food into Edward's mouth. There are scenes where he is trimming bushes, and he's grooming pets, and even styling people's hair. And overnight, the fictional town of sameness is transformed into this bustling utopia of colors and vitality and distinctive art. Edward is lauded as their savior. He's placed on a pedestal and encouraged to open up his own salon. Only things go terribly wrong when he turns down the advances of Joyce, a hot-blooded, lonely housewife who is looking to show Edward a good time. Besides, Edward had already fallen madly in love with Kim, Peg's daughter, and he proves his love for her by breaking into Jim's house. The alarm sounds, Edward is caught and arrested, only to be released because the authorities believe that he is simple-minded, for lack of better words. But now the townspeople are slowly turning against him. The Christian zealot Esmeralda denounces him as evil and satanic. Joyce spreads terrible rumors about Edward attempting to rape her. And Jim, Kim's boyfriend, is out for blood. Things reach a breaking point when Kim's brother is almost ran over by a drunk driving Jim. Edward saves him, but slices his face in the process. He runs off, back to his dark and desolate castle, only to be followed by Kim, Jim, and the rest of the townspeople. Jim and Edward duke it out until Edward stabs him in the chest with one of his scissors and sends him flying off the balcony. Kim grabs one of Edward's scissor hands and tells the townspeople that Edward and Jim are both dead. It is at this moment that she realizes that Edward would never be accepted into the community. Although he was loving and childlike and kind-hearted, he was far too different to live amongst them. And sadly, that is the case with most people who are non-conformists. Either they have to change so much about who they are to fit in, or they have to settle for being outcasts. I find this to be the case for those who choose to label themselves as witches, wizards, mystics, or simply they're put in the category as other. There is this stigma that's attached to wise women and people who refuse to adhere to the laws of man and only obey the laws of nature. Conformists look at our ways as being defiant. They feel threatened by us, believing that we're going to disrupt the status quo, or worse, knock them off their throne. This is why we're groomed to be sheeple from a very early age. Our creativity is beaten out of us. We're forced to go to church. We're forced to get a job. We're forced to go to college and take out student loans. We're forced to drive overpriced cars. We're forced to spend virtually our entire adult lives paying down a mortgage debt. We're forced to be conformists. And conformity never brings about true fulfillment and joy. All it does is lines the pocket of the wealthy and the elite. Yet those of us who are the most creative and non-conforming tend to live our lives in isolation. After all, it is only when we are alone where we feel the most liberated, the most free. We can create and just live our lives without shame, without judgment, without criticism. Yet we as humans are social creatures and we need love and human connections to thrive. So we go out into the world and all people with our talent and our ability to create amazing works of art. But when it comes to getting close, intimate even, we're shunned as being too other, too different. Or in Edward's case, people may see us as sexual conquest or worse, sexual deviants. You see, we nonconformists are the people with scissor hands. Creation and destruction comes easily to us, and for that we are shunned and even feared. We are too raw, too wild, too untamed. We are a bad influence on the people we interact with. And thus we need to be removed from society. And that's how things have always been. Well, that's how things have always been until now. Now we are embarking on a great awakening. Well, the second great awakening. You see, the first great awakening happened during the early 1700s when religious followers realized that the Puritans who came here to the New World were full of shit. Many of these Puritans had abandoned their allegiance to their God for money, for land, for power, and all the other stuff that comes along with being corrupted. And the followers of these religions realized that their leaders were nasty, greedy hypocrites. They stole land, they owed slaves, they did all types of stuff that went against the belief system of their own gods. And so today we're going through this second awakening where we're realizing that these same people who are in charge are full of shit. And maybe it's not a good idea to have a $300,000 student loan debt, to finance a car that's going to sit mostly idle in your garage, to go to a soul-sucking job. Now it's different, where it's all about you creating your own wealth, creating your own path, creating your own direction. And for you to do that, especially on platforms like social media, you're going to have to stand out. You're going to have to craft messages that are going to get people's attention. And guess what, guys? Not too many conformists are really good at this. That's why on social media you see the same old stuff over and over and over again. And you see this because people are so afraid to be weird. They're afraid to be different. They're afraid to do something that's bold. So everybody's going to do what's safe, or for lack of better words, controversial. And guess what, guys? Controversial is getting really, really old. Now we're getting to the point where we're looking for human connection. We're starving for that. And the way we get that is through art and through creativity. And we are able to find transcendence through art and creativity. Whether we seek it out in other people or we look to find those things in ourselves. And that is what's happening in this second revolution. We are beginning to awaken as individuals. And at this time, there is more diversity and more tolerance for different types of people and different types of thought than ever before. And with that, we're going to see this influx of artists and creators and prophets and even subsets of different religions. We weird people have to know that Tim Burton was laughed at when he pitched Beetlejuice. Yet it is still one of the highest earning films and most successful films of all time. So the weirdos, the witches, the wizards, the mystics, we don't have to be afraid of being who we are. We don't have to live our life in isolation or be silenced or be afraid that we're going to be judged by putting ourselves out there and telling people how amazing and creative we are. Because now it's our time to shine. This new awakening is going to give us the ability to create and to share our gifts with the world and change the world in the process. So anyway, guys, that is the video. I would love for you to sound off in the comments below. What do you think about Edward Scissorhands? What do you think about Tim Burton's films? What do you think about conformity and non-conformity? Art, creation, love comments. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you're looking for a way to support this channel, please click on the link below and get a free subscription to Audible and get my first 2 books for free. This is Yessie Blue signing off. Peace out.